Good morning and welcome to day 4 of Natural Scotland Week. So pleased to have so many of you back with us again today. I'm really excited about today's lesson as well. We have some brilliant guests with us today, which I will introduce in just a minute. But first, we're going to ask our usual question. Can you tell us one thing that you learned yesterday? We had a lot of chat about insects yesterday. And we learned quite a bit about all the different life cycles of insects and what they eat and where they live and what kinds of plants they like to eat. Can you remember one thing you learned from yesterday? And don't worry if you weren't with us yesterday, because you can always watch the lesson on the recording, which will be up on our website very soon. And I'm seeing answers in the chat that nails are made of rhino horn. Yeah, well, they're made of the same thing. Our nails are made of the same substance as rhino horn. We learned about invasive species. We learned about invertebrates, the life cycles of all different kinds of bugs. Yes, we learned quite a bit yesterday, actually. That was a lot of information in that lesson, wasn't it? And we have one answer in the chat that a daddy longlegs is actually called a crane fly. Yes, if you remember yesterday, we learned that the term daddy longlegs is used to describe several different kinds of insects. So if we're talking about what we typically think of as a daddy longlegs, we should call it a crane fly because that's what it actually is. So I have another question for you today, just like with the rhino horn. Since this week, we're going to be thinking about all the amazing nature around us and how we're part of nature, let's find out what we have in common with nature. So, can you think of what we have in common with a vampire bat? Can we be both great runners? Can we look after our friends? Or can we both have opposable thumbs? So if you think it's great runners, put 2 hands up. If you think it's look after our friends, put 1 hand up. And if you think it's we both have opposable thumbs, put your hand on your head. Mr. Champion's class says we're both warm-blooded mammals. But there's something else on this list. A lot of people saying we both have opposable thumbs, and what opposable means is if you see my hands, my thumbs point in different directions, like my hand isn't like this, right? So that means our thumb can touch each of our fingers, and that means that we can pick things up and manipulate things with our hands very easily. You think of a dog's paw, for example, it's like this, right? They don't have a thumb. A lot of people thinking the answer is C. Let's find out. Oh, you're all right. The answer is all of them. So vampire bats are surprisingly impressive athletes, and they use their folded wings to propel themselves forward. And common vampire bats can run on the ground instead of flying as a strategy for attacking their prey. And also, vampire bats can develop strong friendships between them. So if some are in trouble, if they're not well, or if they haven't fed, they could starve to death if they go 3 days without food, which is not a very long time at all. So their close friends will look after them by regurgitating or vomiting up some of the food they ate into their friend's mouth. Now, vampire bats usually eat blood, usually from cattle. So not a pretty picture, but it's a very nice way of taking care of their friends because their friends would need to eat if they're not well or they're injured. So that's a very kind thing to do, is to feed their friends so they stay well. And finally, despite their wings, vampire bats also have an opposable thumb. So a thumb that can be placed alongside the fingers of the same hand. Unlike us, vampire bats don't use them for grabbing, but they use them for walking, jumping, and taking off from the ground by leaping into the air. Vampire bats are very cool, but we have quite a bit in common with them, surprisingly. Okay, here's the last one. Which of these is something that only humans can do? Is it A, counting in numbers, B, speaking with an accent. C, having a name. Or D, using tools. If you think it's counting numbers, put both 2 hands up, excuse me. If you think it's speaking with an accent, put 1 hand up. If you think it's having a name, put your hand on your head. And if you think it's using tools, let's see, make a butterfly. Let's see what you think. Lots of guesses coming in. Lots of guesses of B, having an accent, because we know that people speak in lots of different accents. You'll have undoubtedly noticed I sound very different to my colleagues, and that's because I was born in Canada. And even though I've lived here for quite a while, I still sound a little bit different. Oh, it's a mix of guesses now. We have it's about equal. There's a lot of debate going on here. A lot of B, a lot of A, some C, and some D. Right, we're very confused. So let's see if we can find the answer. Let's see what it is. Aha! The answer is surprisingly none of them. None of these things are things that only humans do. So many animals are able to count, including ants that count the number of steps that they have walked to a food source. And they use this information to find their way home and to tell other ants where they found food. B, speaking with an accent. Many birds in the UK have found to have different accents in their songs, depending on where they live. And C, having a name. Elephants have been found to have given each other unique names, which I think is very sweet. D, using tools. Many animals use tools, including birds such as crows, which have been known to use tools, even putting a tool together from multiple parts. So it's amazing what we have in common with the natural world. So just like yesterday, we were hearing about your bug hotels. And we know that most of you, if not all of you, also care for and love birds. So hands up if you have or are planning to have bird feeders or bird boxes in your school grounds. I bet it's quite a few people. Seeing some hands up there. And P5 and Chapel Hall say they're hoping to have some bird feeders soon. Well, hopefully this lesson will help you with knowing the kinds of birds that you might be seeing in your school grounds. And today we are very lucky to be joined by our friends Laura, Tara and Rachel from RSPB, which stands for the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. And although their work on conservation goes beyond birds, we can imagine that the RSPB will be known by many of you through the Big Schools Birdwatch campaign that happens every year. And if your class or school took part in this year's campaign, then you might know that this year's #1 bird was the wood pigeon. So while our friends get their slides set up, I'm wondering if you could tell me in the chat what your favorite bird is, maybe one that you see in your school grounds very often. So while we're just getting set up here, you put in the chat and tell me which one your favorite bird is. And I'll tell you that mine is the robin, because I just love how round they are. And I love their little red breast. And they're so sweet. And I love that they're on Christmas cards. So that's my favorite. Put what yours is in there. And I'll hand over to our friends.
Thank you, Katrina, and a very good morning, everyone, and welcome to our live lesson today. My name's Laura, and I'm an Education, Families and Youth Officer for RSPB Scotland. Part of my role is to support some of our teams in Scotland who might be doing work with schools or families. I don't often go into schools myself, and so I'm very excited to be getting to join you in your classrooms today, even if it is virtually. I'm joined on the call today with 2 of my colleagues. We have Rachel and Tara, and you will see that Rachel also has somebody very special with her. And we will find out a little bit later on about their roles in RSPB. So before we get started with our topic today, I wanted just to chat very briefly about who the RSPB actually are. And as you'll have heard, Katrina told you a little bit there already. So as you said, the RSPB is a large conservation charity, and RSPB stands for the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. And although it's only birds in our title, we actually help to protect all nature. We have lots of amazing nature reserves across the UK where we provide and take care of habitats for nature, but we also go out and work with communities, families and schools to help them experience and take action for nature in their local area. So today we are going to learn about 3 really fascinating birds. They're all very different from each other, as we'll learn, especially in terms of what they sound like. So we are about to have a little listen to each of them, and there's some clues up here in terms of silhouettes of the birds too that might help you. And we want you to have a guess about any of these birds, and you can pop it in the chat, and Tara and Rachel are going to keep an eye on that and see what answers we have coming in. So let's have a listen to our very first bird. And we have our second one. It was a strange one, wasn't it? And here is our third one. Wow, that one sounds even more bizarre. So Tara and Rachel, have we got any guesses coming in for these birds?
Okay, so the first one, we were getting lots of guesses of robin. Should we go through all the guesses first? Then do you want to give the answers?
Let's do that, yeah.
The second one, we had a few different guesses, kind of crow and eagle were mentioned, but then a lot of people said puffin.
Right, okay.
And then the third one has got people a bit stumped. So we've had goose,
Ooh.
but actually I have seen a few of the correct answers. So, but mostly a real mix. I think the third one stumped people.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
shall I let you give the real answers then?
Right, okay, well, we'll go to our first one anyway. So yeah, this bird is quite similar to a robin. I can see where from the silhouette as well, you might think it's a robin, but actually, let's have a look and see what it is. So it's a wren. And I always feel really excited when I see a wren, especially in my garden. So I'm really lucky I have lots of other birds like blackbirds, robins, sparrows that visit my garden. But a wren isn't quite so common for me. So anytime I do see it, I feel really privileged when one does pop down. Now, despite me saying that they're not very common in my garden, they are in fact the UK's most common breeding bird. And they have 8,600,000 territories across the UK. And their habitat is quite varied. So they can live in woodland, they live in urban, and also in farmland areas. But despite those huge number of territories, they are actually what we call an amber list species. And this means that they have declined by 25 to 50% in the past 25 years. They're very small birds, so the weight of them is only between 7 and 12 grams, which is about the weight of a £1 coin. So if you held a £1 coin in your hand, that would be like the weight of a wren standing on your hand. And their length is about 10 centimetres. So if you have your school ruler and you split it into 3, that's about the size of a wren. So it's really quite a small bird. And because of this, when we have really cold winters, sadly, some of them are susceptible to those cold winters. When it comes time for breeding, they like to breed in woodland and the dense undergrowth. So if you have a walk in a woodland and you look at all that floor cover where there's lots of bushes and things like that, that's where they love to breed because it's nice and protected for them. And the females will call at their absolute loudest once they have a brood. And if you've ever heard a wren, they are such a small bird with a very loud voice. So you can hear it really loudly singing out. They start to breed in around May time, so now is the perfect time to go out and see if you can hear a wren. And they will lay between 5 and 6 eggs at a time. And usually they will have 2 clutches of eggs each year. And here's just a wee interesting fact about a wren as well. Scientists have found that the further north in Britain and up into Iceland, so maybe if we're thinking up towards Orkney, Shetland, right up into Iceland, further north you go, the darker their plumage or their feathers. And they also have longer legs and longer bills as well than the ones living south. So I've told you quite a bit about wrens there, and now you're going to see if you can work out some other information about wrens. So we're going to have a little bit of a quiz. So for our first question, you're going to have to do some counting. So I'm going to play the song of a wren again, and I want you to count how many notes you hear. So you need to work out whether you think you've heard 32 notes or 64. So let's have a listen again to our wren singing, and you count at the same time. That was easy to count, wasn't it? Do you want to have a listen again? And you can pop in the chat whether you think it's A, 32 or B, 64. So let's have another listen. Have we got any answers coming through, Tara and Rachel?
We've got quite a few 32s at the moment. Yeah. Oh, yeah, lots. Everyone's gone 32. Everyone is in agreement at the moment. Oh, no, Mrs. Neal's broken the trend, 64.
Oh, well done.
Mrs. Clark too.
Oh, well done then, because actually, can you believe there are 64 notes, and they call 64 notes in just 8 seconds. So a really, really fast-paced tune that they have, or song that they have, and they'll sing that out lots. So do listen out for that. So let's have a look at our next question about wrens. So what food do you think wrens eat? Do you think A, spiders and insects, or do you think B, pine cone seeds? So again, pop that in the chat. A for spiders and insects, and B for pine cone seeds. Tara and Rachel, you can maybe let me know what we're thinking.
Bit of a mix at the moment, actually. Probably quite an even split on guesses. Yeah. I think everyone is quite split.
Yeah, it's quite a tricky one, because it could really be either when I said that they live in woodlands, but actually they have a pointed bill, if you have a wee look at the picture, and this allows them to get right into the undergrowth to forage for spiders and insects. That is their absolute favourite food. And we've got one last question about wrens, and if you were listening carefully to Katrina earlier on, she actually gave you a big clue about this one. So a wren from Edinburgh can identify a wren from Newcastle based on the sound of its call. Do you think that is A, true, or B, false? And Tara and Rachel, what's coming in?
We're getting a lot of trues. In fact, I think everyone's true. Yes, everyone was listening.
Yeah, good listening this morning. And it actually is true. So studies have found that wrens have a local dialect, just like we do, and they can identify a bird from a different area just by the sound of their call. So how fascinating is that? So that was all about wrens. We're about to move on to our second bird, and I think lots of people managed to guess what that was. So we're moving on to our puffin. And the shape of a puffin's bill is quite iconic. So yeah, you might probably managed to get that from the silhouette. So our puffins, they are the smallest of 4 species of birds called auks. So the other ones are guillemots, razorbills, and a bird called a black guillemot. And they are much bigger than our wrens. So if you were to have a puffin come into your classroom and stand on your desk, if you have a ruler in your class, it's about the same height as that. So around about 29 centimetres. And they weigh just a bit less than if you bought a bag of sugar as well. So yes, much heavier than our tiny little wrens. Now, there are 580,000 UK breeding birds in the UK, so that is a huge amount less than our wrens. And these, unfortunately, are a red list species. And that means that their breeding populations have decreased by more than 50% in the past 25 years. So any of our red list species are ones that are most at threat. Their most important food is sand eels, and they have a special bill that allows them to hold lots of them in their mouth at once. And I like to do wildlife photography, and anytime I go and see puffins, that is the photo that I want, to be able to see a puffin with the sand eels in their mouth. They spend the first 5 years of their life and every winter at sea, but they'll return to their colonies in around about March time to breed. When they're at sea, they lose their bright colourful bill, but it does grow back each year. They partner for life, so once they've found their mate, they will stay with that mate for the rest of their life, and they will return to the same burrow each year as well. And if you've ever seen puffins, you will sometimes see them banging their beaks together, and that is how they regrow their bond with their partner. So, are we ready for a puffin quiz? Let's see if we can find out some other interesting facts about puffins. So, puffins have a nickname. What do you think it is? So, do you think it could be A, waiter of the water? Or do you think it's B, clown of the sea? So if you can pop what you think your answer is in the chat, and Tara will let me know if there's anything coming in.
We've got lots of guesses for B, clown of the sea at the moment. Yeah. Oh, we've had one guess for weight of the water, which I personally love. Okay, another guess for that one, but a lot of Bs.
Lots
B
of
because
Bs.
Mr. Champion says B because they're colourful. Like.
Oh,
and a really nice one. Mrs. Kirkness says in Shetland we call them Taminori.
Oh, I
It's
love that name for them. Oh, absolutely, yes. So actually their nickname, well, it could be waiter of the water, looks very smart like a waiter in a restaurant, but actually it's clown of the sea. And yes, I think it must be because of their bright colours, a bit like a clown would have. So well done there. And here's our next question. So puffins lay a single egg, but what do you think their babies are called? And there's a lovely little picture of a puffin baby in the corner there. So could it be A, pufflings, or could it be B, puffballs? So have a think. What do you think it is? So A, pufflings, or B, puffballs?
Some guesses for pufflings. Oh, lots of pufflings here. Oh, a bit of a mix, but mostly pufflings.
Mostly. Yeah. Perfect. And so well done. Yeah, it is. It's pufflings. And pufflings leave the burrow on their own at night time. So they leave without their parents, off they go. But something that I find really fascinating is when they come out, the first thing they do is they look up to the sky to do a bit of stargazing. And this is because they use the stars to help them navigate back to their burrow in 5 years' time. I mean, that is just amazing. So there we go. And our very final question about puffins. So here we go. And there's the picture I was talking about. Now, I didn't take this picture actually, but I would love to. So how many sand eels can a puffin hold in its bill at once? Do you think it's around 10, which would be A, or do you think it's B, around 20?
We've had a guess straight away for around 20, yeah. Couple of those, a bit slower on this one. I think everyone's thinking about it. Lots of 20s. Yeah, I think actually everyone's agreed here. Oh, we've heard one for A, but yeah, most folk are 20.
Most 20. Oh, well done. It is in fact up to 20, or sometimes a little bit more as well. So imagine holding that many in your mouth at once. Wow. And one of the biggest threats to puffins is overfishing. So people taking lots of these sand eels out of the sea, which of course is this important food for puffins, but also warming seas as well, meaning there's less sand eels for them to eat. Another big threat is egg predation, especially from rats. But the RSPB are trying to do work to solve this problem with the help of some very cute four-legged friends. So I'm going to pass over to Rachel to tell you about what her role is in RSPB and about her very clever sidekick. So good morning, Rachel.
Hello, everyone. So my name's Rachel, and I am one of the conservation detection dog handlers. And this is my partner, Reed, and we travel around all the islands in Scotland, helping to protect seabirds like the puffin. So just to start off, we've got a little video of Reed's counterpart in Wales here. So this is Jinx, who helps protect seabirds like the puffin in Wales. And if you want to press play, you can see how hard he's searching there. If you've got the sound, you might even be able to hear him sniffing. He's working incredibly hard. And what he is searching for is brown rats. As Laura said, they are one of the species that do pose a threat to our seabirds. So Reed and Jinx both have very important jobs, and they use their excellent sense of smell to sniff out all signs of rats. Reed here is 6 years old. He is a Springer Spaniel, and he's getting lots of treats, so he sits here nicely, and you can all see him. So rats are a bit of a problem for our seabird islands. Naturally, our seabird islands wouldn't have any other predators on them, but rats have become very good at stowing away on boats and ferries that travel to these islands, and they are also really, really good swimmers. So part of what me and Reed do is we travel to these islands, and Reed searches for the rats so we can find out if any have made it there. But we also check the boats and cargo to find any rats that may be hiding away, so we can prevent them from getting to the islands in the first place. Now, the reason the rats are a problem for the seabirds is that they do eat the chicks and the eggs, which obviously we don't want to happen. Now, we all know that dogs have a really, really good sense of smell, but do we know how good their sense of smell is? So if we move on to the next slide, do we think that a dog's sense of smell is 2 times better than a human's, 10 times better than a human's, or 50 times better than a human's? Now, Reed knows the answer to this question. He knows exactly how good his sense of smell is and how rubbish mine is. But what does everyone else think?
Have a look. We've got a guess.
We have
of
coming
50
up 50 times.
Some people are a bit split between 10 and 50.
Yeah, it is 50 times better. Dogs have an excellent sense of smell. So we have little scent receptors in our nostrils that help us smell different things. And we have around 5 million of them. But dogs actually have around 300 million. So that is 50 times more than us humans have, which is what makes them so good at sniffing. And then if we move on to the next question. Dogs can smell through each nostril individually to help them determine which direction a smell is coming from. Now, do we think that is true or false? What have we got? Any guesses?
No guesses yet. Oh, we've got a guess for true. Actually, lots of trues now. Everyone thought about it a wee bit, and now everyone's getting true.
Everyone has good faith in how good the dogs are. That is true. So obviously dogs are really good at sniffing things, but what we also want them to do is tell us where those things are. So by being able to determine which nostril the smell is coming through the strongest, they can then locate the source of that smell and tell us exactly where the rats are. So obviously these are all skills that make detection dogs excellent partners in helping us conserve our seabirds.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel, and thank you so much, Reid. How well behaved is he? Obviously getting lots of treats there. It's amazing to hear about all the work that these amazing dogs are doing to help protect our seabirds. So thank you both so much for telling us all about that. So we're now going to hand over to Tara to hear all about our third and final bird of the day. So Tara, can you tell us what your role is in RSPB and explain first of all what this bird is, which is a corncrake?
Yeah, of course. So I work on a species. I work to save a corncrake. The picture you can see just here is a corncrake. I think they're a really fascinating bird. They spend their summertime breeding here in Scotland on the islands off the west coast, and they have a really loud call like we heard earlier. And that call actually sounds a lot like, if you've got one of these instruments in your music room, maybe you can have a play. Sounds quite a lot like this. It's called a guiro. And even if you don't have one of those, it sounds a bit like a pen on a comb. You might be able to hear that. So you can have a wee play later, so see if you can make that call. We've actually got a brilliant game that Laura might be able to share afterwards, some instructions, so you can have a game about this later. So although they have an incredibly loud call, they're actually very difficult to see. But in this picture, we've got a rare corncrake standing out in the open, so we can see. So this bird is a little bit bigger than a blackbird, and they have a grey stripe behind their eyes, and they're kind of light brown, and they have black feathers on their back, and a reddish browny colour under the wings, so quite good camouflage. We could go to the next slide.
And Tara, a corncrake is a bird that migrates, isn't it? So that means it only spends part of its year here in Scotland and then travels to somewhere else for the rest of the year. Can you tell us what we know about the migration of corncrakes?
Yeah, so their migration was discovered back in about 2011 when 5 males were tagged here in Scotland using tiny tags. I've just got one in my hand just here to show you. Now, these tags are amazing. They're tiny computers, and with using them, we've been able to learn that these 5 corncrakes travelled all the way down through Europe into Africa. You should be able to see a wee slide in a moment. Here we go. So they stopped off, they flew down over the Sahara, which, if you just think about it for a moment, a bird just a bit bigger than a blackbird. It's a long old journey over the Sahara Desert where there's no food, no water. So they take a break, which I completely understand. In West Africa, the region you can see in pink on this map, countries like Ghana, Nigeria. And then after they've had a nice big meal and they've had a bit of a rest, they carry on down into Central Africa, into the Congo. And that's what you can see in the kind of orange on the map there. And then there was some more scientific research, and this is possibly a bit surprising to you, but what we've discovered is that when they're in the Congo rainforest, they actually like to hang out with these animals, forest elephants, which I just think is amazing. So they hang out together in forest clearings, and we think that's because the elephants like to trample around in the long grass, and it makes the kind of habitat that corncrakes like to hang about in, much in the same way as they hang out with Highland cows here in Scotland.
And can you tell us about some of the threats that face corncrakes and how the RSPB are helping to protect them?
Yeah, so corncrakes used to be found right across Scotland, in fact, all of the UK. Even as recently as about 100 years ago, they were actually reported as calling in central Edinburgh, but they don't do that anymore. In fact, there were actually so many corncrakes back then that they appeared in popular cookbooks of the day. Obviously, that's upsetting to me right now, but it just does to show how many there used to be. But now the population is much, much lower, and they're actually found only on the islands off the west coast of Scotland. And the reasons are largely due to changes in farming. So corncrakes really like, in fact, they need long grass and nettles and irises, kind of vegetation that will give them food and places to hide from predators. It's this sort of habitat that you can see in the photo that the males are looking for around this time of year when they've just returned from that long migration. That's where the males are calling from in the middle of the night to attract a female. That's where they build a nest and incubate and raise their chicks. And their chicks look like this. Oh, that's okay. Um, very cute. I think, at least. I might be biased. So as I was saying, these cute chicks and their parents need the long grass to give them food and protection from predators. Now, unfortunately for corncrakes, farming has changed over time. So, for example, mowing fields to cut the grass is happening earlier in the year than it used to do. And also tractors and other farming machinery is now bigger and faster than it used to be. And corncrakes, unfortunately, they don't like running across short cut grass. Now, this makes them very vulnerable to being accidentally harmed or even killed by farming machinery. So we are working with farmers and crofters. So that's a type of farmer we have, especially in the Western Isles, where these and the Hebrides, where these corncrakes are. So that fields are mowed a bit later, when the chicks are almost fully grown, and also we mow in a corncrake friendly way. And what I mean by that is that the farmer drives into the middle of the field, starts mowing there and rotating out all the way to the outside. And what that means is the corncrake, their mum, their parents and the chicks are able to move out to the edge of the field to safety whilst the tractor is progressing. And we're also working with farmers to create more of that long habitat, the grass habitat, the vegetation that we know that corncrakes need. And we've been doing this because we're lucky to have funding from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. Okay, now we've got some questions for you. So I've just told you a load of information about corncrakes, and we will see if Laura could help me with looking at the answers. I'm going to ask you some questions, see what you think. So how many chicks do you think a corncrake has on average in each clutch? So A, 3 to 6, or B, 8 to 12?
Now, I can't actually see any of the comments at the moment because I'm presenting.
Oh,
but
that's okay, Laura. I can see a few coming in. We've got a bit of a mix, actually. Yeah, in fact, it's really split. Folk aren't quite sure. So I will tell you the correct answer is that corncrakes have about 8 to 12 chicks per clutch. So you can imagine, very cute, all of those cute little black fluffy chicks. And really interesting, those chicks actually leave the nest when they're just 2 days old, which is quite incredible. And they become independent of their mother when they're only 10 to 15 days old. And corncrakes also, they have 2 sets of chicks per year. Okay, the next question. Oh, this is one that I've already kind of alluded to. So how many corncrakes are left in Scotland? So A, 85,000, or B, 850. What do you think? I'll keep an eye on the answers. Everyone's thinking about it. Quite a lot of B's. Oh, someone says all the children are saying B. Okay, yeah, we've had a lot of guesses for B. I'm really sad to say that, unfortunately, the answer is B. That is not many birds at all. So that's why we're working so hard to protect those corncrakes. And as Laura kind of said earlier, that means there's a lot fewer corncrakes than there are of wrens or puffins, the other birds we've been talking about. Okay, last question. So, this is a good one. So how do scientists count the number of corncrakes? Do we A, go out in the dark and listen to count how many corncrakes we can hear? Or B, do we walk about in the long grass and count how many corncrakes we can see? So what do you think? Let's see what answers come in. Some A's. Oh, some B's. A bit split. Mixed, but mainly B, A and B. Okay. Yeah, quite a mix of answers. Someone's saying a bit of both. That's a good guess. Okay. So I'll give you the answer. So the correct answer here is, now corncrakes, imagine what this means for those of us who are working on counting them. So corncrakes actually tend to call between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. So right in the middle of the night. And so yes, we use A, we go out and we listen to them. We have to stand there cupping our ears, turning our heads to really listen hard and work out how many corncrakes there are. And the game I mentioned earlier is all about that. So it's a nice way to play around and learn about survey methods. So whenever we are telling people about how many birds there are, think about that. Just think about how hard it is to go out. Every one of those 850 corncrakes involved people going out in the middle of the night and listening to count how many there were. Okay, I think I'm passing back to Laura. So thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Tara. What fascinating birds corncrakes are. And I know that you live where some of the corncrakes return to, and it must be amazing to hear them call when they return to Scotland. It must be so
Absolutely.
exciting when they come back.
Yeah.
So we're almost out of time. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to both Tara and Rachel and Reid for helping with this lesson today. And it's really great to hear about the work that they are doing to help nature. And a big thank you to all of you for coming along today and getting involved, and also to the team behind the scenes that make these lessons possible. Now, just before we finish up, we have one last challenge for you all. So I'm going to let you hear the 3 birds again that we've been talking about. And then once I shout ready, steady, go, I want you to do the best impression of your favourite bird from today. Okay, so let's have a last listen to each of these birds. So here is our wren. And then we have our puffin. I have to say, the sound of a puffin always makes me laugh. It sounds like they're laughing at all of us. And finally, our corncrake. Right, so have you picked your favourite bird? Okay, get ready for your best impression. Ready, steady, go. Oh, Tara's doing an impression too. Oh, well done, everybody. I think head teachers are going to be wondering what on earth is taking over our school. So just to say, if you have any questions, I don't think we've got time today to answer them, but you are more than welcome to drop an email to me. This is my email up here, and I can pass on questions to Tara and Rachel, and we can see if we can answer anything that you had. So
I just jump back in quickly.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. I just wanted to say that obviously Reid and I will be travelling up to Shetland and Orkney for a couple of weeks at the end of May. So if there are any schools up there that would like us to pop in and say hi, then we can obviously do that. So yeah, just drop Laura a message and she can pass that on.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Really learned a lot about puffins and corncrakes. I had no idea there were so few corncrakes. That's absolutely terrible. Yeah. Thank you too for having everyone make their impressions of birds. I hope that if you would like to share that with us, it would be really cool to see your impressions of birds. You can send them to us at our email address, ecoschools@keepscotlandbeautiful.org, or you can find us on most social media platforms at KSB Scotland. I just have one thing to show you before we leave. If the technology would do its thing, that would be good. There we go. So as our friends were saying, if you have any questions, we would love to answer some of them in our assembly on Friday. So if you do have questions and you send them to our friends at the RSPB, maybe they could send us the answers to share at the assembly. That would be very good, because I'm sure if someone has a question, there's undoubtedly some other people who are thinking the same thing. But just a quick reminder of what we'd like you to do this week. Remember, we have our land art competition where we're asking you to make a picture of things that you find already on the ground in nature. So try not to pick anything or break any, definitely don't break any trees or damage anything. Only use things that you find already on the ground that you can put back where they belong when you're done. And make a picture of what you think nature is happiness means to you. Now, we've all been tasked ourselves with making one, and I'm hoping to share mine with you at the assembly tomorrow. But we'd love to, we already have some coming in, so please do send them. And here is where you can send them in. Like I was saying, our email address, ecoschools@keepscotlandbeautiful.org, or you can find us on social media at KSB Scotland. You can also just say hello, or you can send us your impressions of birds too. That would be very cool. Thank you so much to our friends from the RSPB, and thank you for bringing Reid with you as well. It was a pleasure to meet him and see what his job is. And I hope you can join us tomorrow for our assembly, where we will show you lots of your work, answer some questions, and celebrate the learning that we've shared this week. But that's all we have time for today. So bye for now.